LeBron James will not win an NBA title with the Los Angeles Lakers. It's not going to happen. Not that it can't happen, it's just not going to happen. They do not have the pieces in place for them to win an NBA title. This isn't just some opinion of a Jazz fan who doesn't want the Lakers to win and is sick of the Lakers. The NBA has a structure on which NBA champions are constructed. It's just the way it's been, and it's the way it will always be. The Lakers did not have a team when LeBron went there. They gave up everything to acquire Anthony Davis. Never in the history of the NBA has a team been constructed solely on free agency and giving away all their traded assets. On the contrary, the blueprint to win in the NBA, for all of recent memory's purposes, has been to have a drafted and established superstar at the core of your team and bring in all-stars, superstars, or significant role players to propel you to championship level. But what the Lakers are trying to do has never been done. And I don't see it happening. It's just not feasible. Like, let's go through the list. Let's go through all of the NBA champions so you can see what I'm talking about. The Toronto Raptors gave up DeMar DeRozan, but had Kyle Lowry, an established superstar, all-star point guard, and brought in Kawhi Leonard, one of the top 5 players in the NBA. They brought him in, catapulting them to that level. Now, they gave up an all-star in DeMar DeRozan to improve themselves, and they got a superstar in return. But they already had an all-star drafted, Kyle Lowry, there. And they had a nice core of players. Pascal Siakam. They also brought in Marc Gasol. They brought in pieces, but they had drafted players there that were the core of their team. The Golden State Warriors, a prime example. My goodness, them and the Spurs are almost just the antithesis of what the Lakers are doing. Drafted Curry, drafted Green, drafted Klay Thompson, brought in Andre Iguodala for the first championship, faltered in the finals, brought in Kevin Durant to get the other 2. They had the core. They drafted the core of elite talent and added free agency to complete what they were trying to achieve. San Antonio Spurs, do you even want to start with their drafting strategy? Tim Duncan, one of the best players of all time, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, brought in role players, pieces around them, but it's drafted, established superstars. The Cavaliers had drafted Kyrie, and technically they had drafted LeBron James. He did come back, but they had him drafted as well. But Kyrie Irving, established superstar in the league, and he's the reason that they did win that final game. So, drafted. The Miami Heat, yes, they brought in LeBron James and Chris Bosh in free agency, but they already had Dwayne Wade, an established superstar. The Dallas Mavericks, they had Dirk Nowitzki, brought in Jason Kidd. The 09 and 10 Lakers brought in Pau Gasol to assist Kobe Bryant. The Celtics, everyone wants to talk about the big 3. But who was there first? Paul Pierce. The truth. Brought in Ray Allen, brought in Kevin Garnett, catapulted them to the championship. 06 Miami Heat. Dwayne Wade was there, brought in Shaquille O'Neal. You always have to have an established player, with one exception. The 2004 Detroit Pistons. I don't understand it. It's an anomaly. It doesn't make any sense on how they won the championship. They beat a stacked Lakers team of Shaq, Kobe, Peyton, Karl Malone. They had everyone, and they couldn't get it done. The Detroit Pistons, however, didn't have a drafted team. I don't understand it. Even looking and analyzing it now, it doesn't make any sense. Rasheed Wallace, all-star, brought in from Portland. Chauncey Billups was not drafted by the Detroit Pistons, and Chauncey Billups didn't make an all-star team till after they won the championship, along with Rip Hamilton, who was drafted by the Washington, I don't know if it was Bullets or Wizards at that point, but he was drafted by Washington and brought in. Tayshaun Prince wasn't drafted by them either. Prince, Hamilton, Billups, Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, and Ben Wallace. That core was completely manufactured. It doesn't make any sense. That is the one exception. But they didn't bring in a superstar. They didn't sacrifice the mortgage of everything they were trying to do to get a championship caliber team. There were all-stars riddled with amazing talent. But the 04 Detroit Pistons They are the exception. And it gives hope, honestly, to small market teams that somehow you may be able to pull it off. But that's the only one in any sort of a history book where they pulled it off. I'd love to see it again. I don't think it's going to happen again. And even before that, then you have the Spurs again, then Lakers. That three-peat where they brought in Shaq from Orlando, had Kobe drafted. And for all intents and purposes, Kobe was drafted by the Lakers. Pippen was drafted by the Bulls. I understand Pippen was drafted by the Sonics and traded like a couple weeks later. He never suited up for the Sonics. Kobe never suited up for, was it Charlotte? Those are drafted players. A draft day trade doesn't really change anything. It's still a drafted player. They saw the value of that player before they were an established superstar. So that for me, because right before the Lakers, you have the Spurs. Those Spurs just sprinkling championships in with that drafted class. Then you have the three-peat Bulls 2 times in a row. They brought in Rodman, but they obviously had their superstar and actually drafted Horace Grant, surprisingly, for that first three-peat. The Houston Rockets, Hakeem Olajuwon, established superstar, brought in Clyde the Glide Drexler to get it done. Brought in Kenny Smith to get it done. Assembled pieces of all-star caliber players around an established superstar. But let's go even further back. The bad boy Detroit Pistons of the late 80s, Joe Dumars, Isaiah Thomas, insane backcourt, both drafted. The Lakers, right before them, who did they bring in? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. One of the greatest players ever. Won it with Milwaukee, got him over with the Lakers, and teamed him up with Magic Johnson. And that takes us to the early 80s, where everything was all drafted at that point. There really wasn't a major splash in free agency or player movement pre-1980. There were a couple moves here and there, but they were so few and far between. This is such a different league now where players are shifting and changing. But you can't just make up a team out of nothing. The Lakers had they didn't even make the playoffs with LeBron James last year. Then they gave up a king's ransom for Anthony Davis, and you think you can just patchwork an entire team and catapult you from not in the playoffs to an NBA championship? I just don't see it happening. It's not possible. But now I know what you're thinking. Oh, the Clippers have done the same thing. I don't think the Clippers are going to win the championship either. They didn't have the pieces there. The best player on their team is what? Patrick Beverley? Then they gave up everything to get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I know, obviously, they considered it for getting them both, but still, they gave up so much. They didn't have anything established there. They made the playoffs. They've been changing pieces. They got rid of Blake Griffin. I don't think the Clippers have it either. I just don't see them coming down the stretch and getting it done. Your window is so short when you don't have an established, drafted superstar or all-star. And I know what you're asking. Who do you think is going to win the championship? There's 2 teams that I think follow the appropriate blueprint of how to win an NBA championship that are poised to win the championship in 2020. No, it's not the Jazz, so calm down. The Jazz are close, and I keep going back to those 04 Pistons. They're so close. I don't feel like it's their year. I feel like Western Conference Finals. I feel like next year. Next year, maybe adding a few more pieces. Maybe Donovan and Rudy finally get an all-star team, get a little clout, get deep in the playoffs to prove to a free agent they can bring in and get us over the hump. But it is not the Jazz. The number one team that I think is going to do it is the Philadelphia 76ers. You can get mad at them all you want for how they did it. They drafted 2 all-star/superstar players, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, as the core of their team. Embiid is nothing to mess with. He's one of 2 great scoring centers in the league. Ben Simmons does it all, can get a triple-double on any night, drafted, developed within the system. And then they brought in Al Horford. They brought in Tobias Harris. They've brought in pieces around to build around and have a team that's going to compete for a championship. And the other team, also in the East, the Milwaukee Bucks. The MVP, Giannis, the Greek Freak, getting it done. They've added Brook Lopez. I know he only has 1 all-star appearance, but he's an all-star. Added Bledsoe, added pieces around the best player in the league that is virtually unguardable. They're hungry for more. They want to win it all. I see one of those 2 teams actually taking out the Lakers or the Clippers in the finals. The Lakers or the Clippers will make the finals, in my opinion. That's going to get them through the West. But I think they're going to run into problems in the finals against one of those two teams. Both the Clippers and the Lakers do not match up well against those two teams. Beyond that, now you're losing a year. LeBron's a year older. Kawhi's a year older. You're running out of contracts. Things are expiring. Maybe Anthony Davis goes to the Bulls. Both of those teams need to win it this year. Only one can. I don't see it happening. I just don't. Prove me wrong and show me how the Lakers or the Clippers are going to get it done. It's just not in the cards. It's not. Sixers, Bucks, one of those two teams are winning it this year and continuing what we already knew, that you need to draft and establish your core before you bring in all-star talent to get an NBA championship. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I think that I do. Put it in the comments. Let me know what I'm missing. I'd love to hear your take on it. But until then, this is Paul Sheffield with Jazz Fans TV. Have a great one.